AI Media Technologies is a global leader in captioning, transcription, and translation solutions. The company combines AI, machine learning, and human read speakers to provide solutions at the highest accuracy and delivers these via unique captioning infrastructure and the iCap Cloud network. AI Media debuted on the ASX in 2020 and has a current market cap of 61 million. Joining me here in the studio today is co-founder and CEO Tony Abraham. Tony is actually the largest shareholder in AI Media with a 15% stake and has recently overseen the company's pathway to profitability and transition towards higher margin SaaS revenue. So to give us an update on that and more, it's over to you, Tony.
Thanks very much, Olivia. So as Olivia mentioned, AI Media provides captioning, transcription, and translation solutions right around the world. Each month, we deliver over 9 million minutes of captioning, with our largest market being in the United States. We have the best-in-class technology and the only end-to-end captioning solution, which begins with encrypting the audio, and I'll spend a little bit more time on that to explain where the three pillars of the intellectual property are for AI Media and how those three pillars of intellectual property ensure that we can get the most out of the improvements in AI that people are seeing through products like ChatGPT to deliver breakthrough accuracy in live and recorded transcription and translation. As Olivia mentioned, this year was a transformational one. Over half of our gross profit is now coming directly from technology sales, and that's up from 0 when we listed. Of course, we achieved profitability with $3.3 million in EBITDA and $3.5 million in operating cash flow. Executing on growth priorities, as Olivia mentioned, will involve continuing to focus on the three pillars of our intellectual property, being encoding, the iCap network and cloud, and the Lexi product itself. In terms of key highlights, total revenue was relatively flat, up $2 million on last year to $61.8 million. But the big story is the lift in technology revenue. That technology revenue up 33% to $24 million, and a total gross profit of $20.2 million on that total. That has seen our gross margin percentage lift to 60%, and that's up from 38% when we listed back in 2020. So a real transformation well over halfway through. That Lexi revenue is now generating almost $8 million a year, and the monthly minutes are now 3.4 million, and that's an increase of 1 million just in the last 12 months. We have a cash balance of 17 million, from which we are going to be paying final payments of around $8 million to the vendors of two of the companies that we acquired over the last few years, and they are the final payments. Some big customer wins this year have really centered on sports broadcasters, and the sports broadcasting wins have been because of the improvement in the underlying AI. That AI just last year wasn't good enough to handle sports, but with the breakthrough results with our latest release of Lexi 3.0, we are now able to caption more and more content using that automated service. So we don't need as many re-speakers, which are humans in the loop, to effectively get that level of quality that our customers expect. This is a slide that I want to spend a little bit of time on because this is really the key pillars of the intellectual property. Essentially, what we do is we take a video output from one of our customers, and that could be a broadcaster or a parliament or even a courtroom. And then we have a series of products that encode that audio. What do I mean by encoding that audio? Essentially, it involves taking the audio as cleanly as possible and then delivering that audio with as little noise as possible to the AI engine. And you can see there are three types of encoders there. The encoder core product is the one that has a 43-year life. And this is part of the acquisition of a New York-based company called EEG that we did in 2021. That product set has around an 80% market share in the United States in broadcast. And many of our competitors actually piggyback on those encoder devices to deliver their services. And that's part of the industry transformation that's underway at the moment. The other two encoding solutions are designed for future-proofing. Alta is designed for an internet protocol rather than physical wires. And Falcon is a web streaming where a customer points their stream effectively at an AWS site. All of those encoders do the same thing. And if you think about it, it's effectively like getting better quality audio into the engine. So it's effectively noise cancelling headsets rather than holding your iPhone up in a crowded pub. And we can architect with our customers so we get isolated audio feeds up to 16 individual feeds from individual microphones that further to help improve the quality of any of the AI engines. And that really is where the IP begins. The other two elements of the IP are under item 3, and that's the ICAP cloud and network. Initially, all of those encoders were networked to each other for the purpose of allowing an automatic failover. So if one of the devices failed, there would be a device in a backup path. And because all of those encoders were networked, it would automatically allow it to fail over. That was a really important change that was made by EEG in the early 2000s. A few years later, what they decided to do was genius, which was to put actually not just network all of those devices to each other, but to network them to a cloud service. And this became the ICAP cloud service. And that ICAP cloud service is where we host dozens of different AI engines that do the transcription. And a lot of people ask me, what's the best AI engine out there? And the answer is, it depends. It's very much horses for courses. If you are using English language in a courtroom environment, it may be a very different engine to if you're using it for Japanese sports broadcasting. So having all of those engines available on the ICAP cloud that could be then sent immediately to any of the encoders, that's the second key element of the IP. The third and final key element of the IP is Lexi itself. And what Lexi does is Lexi understands the context of what it is transcribing because it has access to the metadata associated with the particular session that's coming up. So if you think about an example would be a news broadcast, it would know that the next 45 seconds are going to be sports, and then the 2 minutes after that are going to be weather. That needs very different dictionaries, but putting all of those dictionaries together improves the accuracy from the out-of-the-box solution by about 90% taken together. So all three of those elements together are really important to get the most out of the AI. And I'll just, in the interest of time, I'll skip through a few of these slides. This slide here, slide 7, is the one I look at the most. It shows both the growth in the overall network, and that's growing by 21% year on year, and then the growth of Lexi as a percentage of that is growing twice as fast. And Lexi is the automated service. And so what we can see is that the overall market is growing and the percentage of that market that's covered by Lexi is growing. So effectively, a bigger slice of a bigger pie. There's some further details there on what kind of enhancements we are continuing to focus on for those 3 key pillars of the intellectual property, encoding, ICAP, and Lexi. We are continuing to upgrade and invest in ICAP, and part of that is that we are beginning to charge an hourly fee to other industry participants who use that network to deliver their services. But most interestingly, I think, is this slide 10. And this was something that we released just last month, and it is a Lexi toolkit. And it all starts with Lexi Live in the middle, and that's the service that currently delivers 3.4 million minutes a month, mostly in US broadcast, but also on channels like Sky News that you can see here. What this map really provides us is a roadmap of where we see the market heading in the next 5+ years. So outside of Lexi Live, Lexi DR is a really important component, and DR is disaster recovery. And what that means is, in case the internet goes down, we have now got a box that we are selling to customers so they can hot swap that just like if an encoder fails. And it doesn't require the internet. It will work immediately, and we're getting a lot of strong support from customers for that, and that helps them get up to 4 nines uptime, which is really the gold standard. Lexi Local is a really interesting installation. That's for very high security customers. Think US Department of Defense, where they want to ensure that absolutely no information whatsoever leaves their walled garden. And so we effectively install Lexi and the ICAP network completely behind their firewalls, and we get none of that data. So that's a really important product that we're selling now. Lexi Library, which is sitting there about 10 o'clock on the wheel, that's the new name for Subsilo, and a much better name than Subsilo. And what Lexi Library does is it effectively ensures that all of those live captions, which have the timestamp associated with the media, that they are preserved forever along with that content, and that allows that content to be searchable. And that's the key application for Lexi Library. And again, Lexi Library is almost there by default once the Lexi Live service is ordered. And so this is about making sure that what was live also gives benefits in terms of permanence. The other two elements there are the ones I'm most excited about, though, and that's for the future. The one at about 7 o'clock, Lexi Recorded, is going to be a game changer. We are really at the cusp of being able to deliver a service for recorded media using this automated workflow in a way that just wasn't possible in the past. We're working with some index customers on this, and feedback has been incredibly positive. The total addressable market for recorded media transcription is 100 times the size of the live market. So being in there and making sure we're delivering the best possible automated solution for recorded by using the technology we delivered for live, and the part of the market that we're focused on with recorded first is the fast market. So if someone wants to make sure that they've got a captioned clip of a Women's World Cup goal that just got scored, we can deliver that back within seconds because it doesn't actually require any human intervention whatsoever, whereas our competitors are still doing everything with a final human check. And so that fast turnaround is really important. And then the final piece is Lexi Translate. This is not yet ready for prime time, but what we are seeing in our Lexi Lab are results now that are very, very similar to how Lexi Live was performing about 2 years ago. And again, the Translate market is many, many times bigger than the Lexi Live market, and getting to a point where you can automatically translate anything in any language live using this technology and delivering it with a level of quality that people expect, that is coming. And so I might just pause there and see if you've got some questions.
Sure, no, that was a great rundown. Thanks, Tony. And I like the new branding as well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so let's move on to some questions. I think one of the slides there was on sort of the FY24 growth priorities, and one of them being expansion into new territories and markets. I think my first question is probably, where is most appealing to you? And do you plan to do that organically, or is that through potentially M&A as well?
Yeah, great question. We are looking, effectively what we've got is a product that delivers accurate live transcription proven at scale in the world's toughest market, which is US broadcast. You then say, well, where else is transcription being done? Obviously, legal is a very big one, and that's a market that we're very focused on. We've had a lot of success, initial success, I will say, in parliaments and city halls and things like that. So, and that's been a big focus. But where we're seeing probably the FY24 focus in particular is around customers that are upgrading their technology infrastructure to an internet protocol and away from plugs and wires. And this is a standard that's just that I think is really going to take off in the next few years. It's a product that it's a standard that's called 2110. And Alta, our Alta product encodes natively in 2110. In particular, what we're seeing is as customers now migrate to 2110 ahead of the Olympics next year, a lot of them are doing this ahead of the Olympics because they want to be broadcasting the Olympics in that standard, and that's how they're going to receive those feeds. That's a key area of focus for us. And another area of key focus for us is the sports broadcast organizations themselves, who have their own over-the-top infrastructure, and they're beginning to broadcast direct to consumers. And again, this is a brand new service. It's still broadcasting, so we still know how to do it. And it is in this new IP 2110 environment. So for FY24, a lot of that focus is on 2110 and Alta in particular.
Okay, great. I think one product I find quite interesting, is the ICAP network. Most of your competitors are actually using the ICAP network to deliver their own captions. Could you run us through sort of why that is and why it hasn't been replicated?
That is a great question, and we certainly are in a position now where, having acquired EEG 2 years ago, and you have to think about the reason this happened was because EEG as an independent company was making certain decisions. So I mentioned that they decided to network all of those devices back in the early 2000s, and that was for a failover reason. But then what they also did is it allowed them to connect more effectively with the human captioners who are doing it, with the re-speakers, because previously there was no network. And so the captioners had to physically dial in with a modem to the actual device.
Yeah.
And so being able to connect over an IP address was absolutely revolutionary. Now, because EEG at the time was only making money by selling the boxes, they didn't have Lexi at the time.
Yep.
What they did is they basically created this ICAP network protocol, and they gave it away for free. They gave it away for free because they wanted to establish it as the default standard, and they were very successful at that. And it became the default standard such that I think by 2018, our numbers were that over 90% of US broadcast was being carried over the ICAP network. Now, we then acquired EEG and found ourselves in a position where suddenly we are supporting third-party captioning providers who are our competitors for free. And that's not a sustainable situation. We had obviously a lot of pressure from customers to improve the reliability of that network as that network has grown. And so we've needed to invest considerable money in building and making more resilient and scaling that ICAP network. And we inherited a system of like 6 different charges with ICAP. And so we've scrapped all of those, and we're replacing it instead with a fixed hourly fee to our third-party competitors effectively. And that charges between $2 and $4 an hour.
Okay. And how has that been received sort of in the market? And I guess
we're in the middle of that process at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, nobody likes paying for something that was free before.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, the way I explain it is, the Napster days are over and everyone's got to get a Spotify subscription.
Yeah. Okay. I think the technology, we'll stick with the technology. I guess, how do you see that evolving over the next few years, sort of given
Yeah, look,
how it's
very
processing?
much, very much live will continue to be, a key driver,
Mm.
but those elements of recorded and translate are, I think, going to be just as big. Now, at the moment, 99.9% of what we do on Lexi is live.
Mm.
I think that's going to end up being about a third, a third, a third between live, recorded, and translate over, say, the next 3 years.
Okay. And the recorded space is obviously much, much bigger.
Much bigger.
From a competitive standpoint, sort
Yeah.
of what is the landscape?
There's,
Like in that
I
space?
mean, if you look at the language service provider market,
Yeah.
you'll find dozens of companies
Right.
that I mean, you look at the very big players like RWS and TransPerfect, and they're billion-dollar annual revenue
Yeah,
companies.
sure.
But our view is that, I mean, they're still charging that services type revenue, which is human delivered. If we can do this at source using just technology, which is what we're seeing, then we're going to be able to deliver it faster, more reliably, more securely, and much cheaper than that competition, because we've got the same advantage in encoding
Right.
and then matching with the data that we have with live. So yeah, we see that as a big opportunity.
Okay. And just touching on the financials quickly, you obviously saw some quite strong margin improvement year on year in FY23. Did start to flatten half on half. So what are your expectations for margin growth now going forward, given you are probably at the back end of this transition towards SaaS?
Yeah, look, I think that's right. Like, I don't see that margin percentage ticking up much more above 60. And that's because of a couple of things. Firstly, the services component of the business is still very important. It's less important in terms of gross profit dollars, but it's very important for customers because they want to make sure that for that 10% of content that's not yet ready for Lexi because it's too difficult, it's got multiple accents, it's got crosstalk, it's got different languages, it's got a halftime show with rap lyrics, that still needs humans. And so having an ability to call on those very, very high quality humans, those re-speakers, those stenographers, is a really important component of that.
Okay, great. Well, just in the interest of time, we might wrap it up there. So thanks again for joining us today, Tony, and congrats on another really solid result. And we look forward to seeing what's next on the cards for AI Media.
Thanks very much, Olivia.